What's up, mi gente? Back again, Mo from Rican. But I do regrettably have to tell you that Lou is a little bit under the weather. He's got the flu. We're sending all his good wishes to him for a speedy recovery, and he'll be back with us soon. As Meals on Wheels is just sitting down and enjoying his time off, if you know what I mean. So, again, I'm left without a co-host, but thankfully, to the gods of Trek, I'm actually going to now communicate and hopefully beam one down in here. So, give it a second. Yeah. Moto Endeavor, yeah. Can you bring in and beam down that special host for me? All right, thank you. And any moment now, our host will beam on in. Yeah, what's up, brother? How you feel?
Pretty good. How you doing?
That whole atom disruption and reconstitution.
Surprisingly smooth, but like Jameson smooth.
Oh, Jameson smooth. No, that I never heard. I love me some Jameson.
There you go.
I love me some Jameson. So, dude, I have to say, I'm going to start it off with this. Nerd Bochinche coming through, all right? Now, to start it off, I just heard some new reports in regards to the lawsuit that Gina Carano is having against Disney.
All right, so what's going on?
Oh, dude, first of all, we already know, and it's already been publicly known, the first case or the first time in court, Disney tried to dismiss the charges.
Yeah.
Failed.
Of course.
Then it went to an appeal. That also failed, which is like causing so many rumples, all sorts of reports because of the fact that Disney is definitely going to be afraid, especially when it comes to the discovery. And mind you, she was fired. I mean, it was already... Yeah. She was fired by email by none other than Kathleen Kennedy. So those emails are going to be part of discovery. So that means it's going to become public, not something that Disney is completely afraid about. But what I've also looking and on news reports that Disney stock just went up. Right after the president elect Donald Trump came on board, then you saw Disney stock shot up. But this was at the same time that the first appeal fell. That's it, done. They know discovery is going to happen. It's going to go to trial. So they started, and I'm quite surprised by this, they started now advertising back on X.
Well,
and mind you, Elon Musk is the man behind Gina Carano's. He's the one funding Gina Carano's lawsuit against Disney.
But that's the whole thing. And isn't he going to be now like the guy who like checks on businesses and stuff like that? So they kind of have to kiss a little butt right now.
Big time. But there's also, and I've seen it in one YouTuber where they've highlighted certain scenes with Musk having discussions. And from what I'm hearing and from what I've been reading, and it's been a big buzz that you could see Elon Musk, I think, is gunning to get Disney.
You think he's going to try and buy Disney?
Buy Disney.
Maybe he can get the mouse back for them.
Big time. And a better slice of the cheese.
$10 billion so far.
Yeah.
$10 billion deal.
$10 billion deal. And we're talking, that's a lot of cheese, to say the least.
If you can build a bridge to space, you should be able to buy Disney.
Exactly. And I'm seeing them now advertising on X. And just recently, and maybe I'm giving my opinion on this. I think this is maybe their own way of trying to reach a settlement with Gina, because Disney came out with the encyclopedia, right, for all their Star Wars characters. That way people can look in on them and see what their background story. And recently, Gina is featured on it. Or excuse me, Cara Dune. She's got a big spread on one page, a full-page picture of her, and then the next full page is her entire bio from her origins, from the time that she was in the military, and then of course
the time with Mandalorian and Grogu.
Exactly.
But, sure, it's Cara Dune, but it kind of looks a little bit like Gina.
It looks a lot like Gina, and for merchandising purposes, I mean, that's if you're doing that, that you cannot use her likeness without giving her something back from that. So that's a given, because when she was X out of Disney, all of the pop-ups that they had of Cara Dune went like triple in value. So if you own one, you own a piece of gold in your hand right there. But think of it now. I mean, the value might go back down if they're going to reinstitute
her into all this stuff. I mean,
exactly. Sure. Plus, I mean, I could see that if they do a settlement, I'm not going to see it as, oh, I want a bunch of money.
Well, that depends. What would the settlement be if Elon Musk takes over Disney in the meantime? Like, will there even be a full case? You think she would dead the case, or you think he's just going to cut her some cheese?
Oh, I think he's going to cut her some cheese. I see cheese, but not cheese in the way of a big, huge. I mean, if it huge settlement, like millions, big monies and millions. No, I mean, there's going to be some money. I'm not going to say there isn't, but I could see her saying, "No, I want you to guarantee me back into the Mandalorian."
Yep.
And I want you to give me what was promised, because if originally, before any of this and Kathleen Kennedy happened, she was in line for a spinoff, right, her own show, which was the Rangers of the Old Republic.
Right.
So I could see that happening, because look at it this way: you give her a bunch of money. Well, that's just a bunch of money,
of course.
But if you put her back in,
that's an investment.
That's an investment.
Well,
and so if you want to look at it from the business standpoint, why not? Because she is still a name, and a lot of girls, a lot of their woke initiative will look at her and say, "Yeah, we can use that."
I honestly think, though, that if she does get her own series, right? People are like, why do these female-led series fail? I think that's because they put a little too much in it. If you just put a female character in a role that does everything the same as any male lead, and I think that's something that Gina would fully be behind, considering her, off-screen ideology. I think you'd actually have a successful series that can please everybody. Yes. So I think it's a good move for Disney in general to just kind of find a way to implement her, because her character, whether you're blue, red, whatever, everybody was behind Cara Dune, even if they weren't a big Mandalorian fan himself.
Yes, I love you, Gina. I thought I'd just say that out loud on camera.
I'm not mad at you.
But, oh, man, how can I not be mad? But I see it. You're right. That is a huge investment. And when they created the character, it was exactly how their whole initiative is, but that's how she was. So she is anyway, even off camera and on camera. Because she said herself in an interview that she isn't one to stand by and let people get bullied, and that she saw that a lot in Disney, and she made it a point to stand up to them. And that's probably, especially with Kathleen Kennedy, probably looked at it as like, you standing up to me? And
a lot of big egos.
And thought she was making her pay for it. But I'm like, you're messing with the wrong chick there. Yeah. It's like, don't let her catch you in the parking lot. Mind you, she is an MMA champion fighter, Muay Thai champion fighter. If you don't believe me, what she can do to you, ask Michael Fassbender how his shin is doing. I bet you he still has a little bit of a kink here and there after he kicked her and he wind up for. Who does that? You kick someone and you wind up for.
Well, haven't you ever seen when Anderson Silva kicked Wiseman and the leg wrapped around?
Yeah, but his didn't break him.
No, it did. It broke in half around.
No, not Anderson. I'm talking about Michael. His didn't break, but it did take him out of commission for 4 days. So when it comes to strength, power, and the femininity behind her, because in other interviews she is so. How can I say? She always acts so demure, right? But it's appealing.
Yeah,
she doesn't come out like, "Come here, I will talk to you."
It's not Ronda Rousey.
Yeah, it's not. It's not. But she has the feminine and the strength that combine. That if you wanted to make a woke initiative, I hate using that word, but looking at her and her character, it would sell and would sell huge.
I don't even think in this case it's like a woke initiative. I think you just literally, in one of the rare occasions, have a literal female character that fans back. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
Because, my favorite example is, like, if you look at the show Charmed, right? You got two different generations of it. You have the first one where everyone I know when Alyssa Milano's Charmed came out, loved it, right? They loved the show. You're talking about a show that's led by 3 women. They're definitely a proud feminist show when you look at the analytics, but it never felt that way, right? It didn't feel like someone was shoving feminism and woman empowerment down your throat every 5 seconds. It's just clear as day. They're standing up to corrupt people. They're, the patriarchy and all that, but that's just the essence of the show.
Yes.
Then you get the new generation,
No.
And everything about it just felt like a PSA.
Yeah.
And you're just like, I don't even know people who know, like, who watch the show anymore.
Yeah, it's like the example I like to give sometimes. It's like they smash it in your face and then say you have to enjoy this because this is what the world is about. And I'm like, no, it doesn't have to. My always perfect example when it comes to that sort of idealism, I say, look, why don't you look at Paramount? Look at Star Trek. Mm-hmm. For the almost 60 plus years that they've been on, they have tackled every subject with such respect, dignity, in a way that doesn't process it in your face. Mm-hmm. It is great storytelling. You know, it's like, for instance, in the days of Kirk and Spock in the original series, you had your first interracial kiss, which should have shut down the show on that point.
Completely.
They didn't. They did a good story on it. And then the next came with racism, when you had the two guys, the last two on Earth or on that planet fighting each other. Oh, they're racist. Why? Because his other side of his face is black and mine is white. But they show what hatred and racism could lead to.
Right.
And that was, again, great storytelling. You go fast forward to the next generation. I mean, they tackled everything from drug addiction and then love in so many different aspects. Even from the one that I remember the most that stood out was, and I can't remember the name of the episode, but I remember it was a Dr. Crusher episode. She was in love with a guy named Stan, who was a diplomat, who was sent on a mission to try and ease a situation. Right. And then an accident happened on his shuttle, and she came, and she was going to treat him, and then all of a sudden he warned her, said, no, don't do that. My symbiont will die.
Right.
The introduction of a symbiont race.
Right.
And then to save the symbiont, Riker volunteered his body until a replacement would come. And also being the fact that the symbiont is a negotiator, he went on and made negotiations to at least bring peace to that planet.
Right.
But the one thing was missed was he was still in love with Crusher. And of course, looking at Riker, it's like, oh, that's Riker. It's like kissing my brother.
Right.
But that kind of went away after a while because in the storytelling, she now did not see Riker anymore because the symbiote character came out. Okay, well, at least to say they had their moment, and Riker probably would never forget that. But at the end, when the replacement came, it was still Stan, but Stan was a woman.
Right.
And she approached her, and he still was in love, or the symbiont was still in love with Dr. Crusher, and she's like,
not my thing right now. Yeah,
not my thing. But they handled it tastefully,
right? And
they didn't handle it like, here, smack. She's either going to be gay or bi. No, it wasn't that. And even if you wanted to go in that direction when it came to bisexuals or gays, Discovery is a perfect example. Mm-hmm. We had the first couple that were gay.
Yeah,
okay, one's an engineer, the other one's a doctor. But they didn't do it in a way that, like I've seen on some other shows where they have their hot scenes and they're all over each other. No, they treated them as they're a couple. But they're a couple, they're different from each other, but they work.
Right.
And their situations throughout the 5 years, from everything from being in the 23rd century, then shuffled up into the 32nd century, right, dealing with death and life and rejection, and getting back together and just finding peace in all of that as a couple working with each other. I mean,
right,
that was, again, respectful, tasteful, sweet, very sweet in some of the instances when they're just having a moment with each other. And it ain't all sexual. It was just two couples.
It was a relationship.
A relationship, yeah, where people can look at this and just go, yeah.
I understand it, yeah.
I mean, I didn't have somebody die on me and come back to life.
That's another thing.
Exactly. But in that essence, you're looking at people. And I think that's the beauty of how Star Trek approaches its storytelling, is they're bringing you people. When they brought Dira, she was the first binary person. Again, they didn't inflate her binary status. They just presented you with Dira, and Dira was a sweet young child who happened to have a symbiont,
right, who
is over 400 years or 900 years old. I forget how long, but that symbiont has seen many lifetimes.
And many bodies.
Many bodies.
Right.
And Gray was her boyfriend. And then he was also I think, binary as well, and they didn't touch on that.
Too
They
much.
just touched on them
As a relationship.
as
yeah.
a relationship, and that's, to me, it's like how you got to do it.
I feel like that is exactly how you do it. Is where they talk about how they want to present a lot of woke ideology to children. I'm like, there's no real need to present it, right?
Mhm.
If you have a book that talks about how families are different, and you just show there can be two mommies, two daddies, and a mom and a dad, somewhere in the book, boom, you did everything you need to do there to actually push along the vision and the knowledge of that sort of a thing. Um, I think Star Trek is a great example because that's also another show where I really have never heard anyone, even in the fandom, go back and forth about a guy or a girl captain, right? And we've had several, guys and several women as captains of the ship. And they just really talk about whether or not they were a good captain or not, just because of the adventures, how they handled the team thing. I think that's fair. Some of your favorite characters. I think Star Trek though is a platform where it's easier to do, right? It's the same reason why in X-Men, right, he went with mutants. Meanwhile, he's talking about civil rights through the whole series.
Exactly.
Right? It's just because now that in a series like Star Trek and a series like X-Men, you have the visual representation of everyone.
Yes.
Right? So now instead of trying to pay attention of who just looks the most like me, if everyone's on the same side, you can pay more attention to the actual story and messages being told and sent.
Exactly. And that's to me is what should be promoted. I mean, and I'll talk about this coming up soon, but that'll be on the next segment where how it's destroying certain franchises. One in particular that's almost on the very edge is Warhammer 40,000.
Oh wow!
And I'm telling you, it is looking like it's not looking good.
Sorry, Henry.
No, actually, it's not looking good for Amazon. To be honest with you, it's really not looking good for them. Oh, and I'm feeling. Look, it's already telling me it's almost that time. We're gonna go into a commercial break. You might want to hold on to something. You think the transporter was bad? Uh-oh. You haven't felt this yet.
Uh-oh.
Here we go.
I don't like this.
Boop. Okay, I've had enough.
You twisted your stomach up?
To say the
You
least.
couldn't just do the bean thing again? I told you it was like Jameson.
Oh,
you want to go for a whirlwind?
I might just need a few shots of that just to recover from that.
Take some on the next commercial.
Oh, God. Oh, God. Okay, so back to where we were at before, and I think we were talking about Warhammer 40,000.
Yeah.
Dude, I've been keeping a close eye on this. And, I got to admit, and, the whole idea of bringing the game itself to the cinematic and television world is great. I mean, a lot have been successful. Was it The Last of Us has been very successful regarding that. And many other games to that have followed that have gone to the screen, have been very successful in that respect.
Even
Resident Evil.
That latest Dungeons and Dragons movie was actually pretty cool.
I love that one.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I love that one. But I have to say that again, this whole woke initiative has been taking over. And their first mistake, of course, that Amazon made, well, if they wanted to have that, they made the mistake of making Cavill not only the star of the film, but they made him executive producer. So as far as the quality of the show, the storytelling and that's left up to him to make that call. But now it's like he's in the middle. Now we already know, and what I love most about Cavill is that he is, how can I put it? He's very loyal to the source material. He's one of those actors that when you're going to bring a character to life, you're going to bring it to the big screen. Be truthful to it. Don't just turn around and create something out of nothing, or don't create.
It's got to be accurate.
Yeah, be accurate because
doesn't matter if it's a game, a book, or something, but take it from some sort of given original part of the canon, to build off of.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, don't try to satisfy one group. Tell a story, and you'll be surprised how many everyone will be happy with it. Because that's it. Just tell the damn story.
If a game, a book, is popular enough to get to the point where now you're thinking about bringing it live action or animating it, that means there's a fan base for it.
Exactly.
Create what it is that made the fan base happy and introduce it to an audience that's just unaware. That's all you have to do.
True.
And I bet you it takes. They didn't just look at the Avengers, right?
Yes.
They're taking from a specific part of Marvel, right? Because they're, Marvel's Ultimate, yeah, there's some Hollywood stuff added in, that's why Captain America doesn't die, Civil War and all of that. They don't have the X-Men rights, right? Exactly. But for the most part, they're taking from a particular line of Marvel that comic fans can be like, I know where this is from. And yet still, Black Widow gets popular enough that despite the movie being bad, not because it's led by a woman, but because the script was, she gets her own solo film. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. You could still get your open-mindedness messages out there, but if you're taking from source material, it's the reason why fans still love it. That's all you have to do.
Yeah. Tell the story. Everything else falls in its place. Mind you, Marvel, in the first 10 years alone, if you look at their numbers,
it's ridiculous.
It is ridiculous.
It's ridiculous.
It is ridiculous. And if you wanted that woke, well, they gave it to you in Endgame.
Yeah.
Oh, my favorite badass moment when all those ladies got together. My God, my hairs are standing up talking about it again. It is that incredible, bro. And I'm like, I didn't know which one I wanted to love more. I love them all. But that's the thing. But that's the thing. You brought some badass ladies to then come in, we'll handle this. He said, oh, damn.
And the mere fact that you have all these really strong males, some of them with superpowers or not, still being like, yeah, we can trust y'all to do that. That says a lot. Guys that could destroy planets, nah, these girls got it. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly. Exactly. It says a lot. I don't know how much more equality in the story itself do you want?
Low key, they let Wanda almost solo Thanos with the Infinity Stones. You know what I'm saying?
I'm like, yeah, this is true. Even without it, he was a tough customer, and she was clearly whipping, and yes, I'm going to say the word, and tearing apart everything, his suit and everything, and he's like, rain fire is the only thing he could do to save himself. But again, you brought a strong character in. You didn't bash it in our face. You just demonstrated that she could do this, and that's it. I don't know much more you can tell from that.
More importantly, it was believable, right? Mm-hmm. The way that they introduce the characters, scale them. Granted, who's believing anyone's going to use magic to almost destroy the world is the whole thing, but just kind of within the realm of which it existed, it didn't seem like anybody got any hacks. No. You know what I'm saying? No. I don't know if you ever watched the show Nikita. Right? And granted, I love Maggie Q, but if you watch 90% of those fights, it doesn't make sense because she is literally 200 pounds lesser than everyone she's fighting, and they're all supposed to be trained killer assassins.
This is true.
Her using her femininity to get close to the mark and then killing him who has no battle experience, I could believe that.
Yeah.
But when she's getting jumped by 4 dudes 3 times her size that are all as trained as her,
no.
Make it make sense.
No.
No weapons even.
No weapons, and you took them all out, and I'm like, no, I'm not buying it.
At all.
Not buying it. Not buying it at all. But that's a good example. Another example where they went wrong with this whole pushing this initiative against Disney with the Acolytes.
Yeah, that was ridiculous.
I understand the premise of what your story you're trying to tell, but I'm like, you were all over the place.
Yeah.
You were all over the place. You just didn't really, kind of giving us something to follow. It was like what I used to say about old monster films. When I watched Godzilla as a kid in the 60s, it's the storytelling, okay, but then you just go, yay, monsters!
Right.
And then they stop fighting, they go, oh, okay, the people are talking.
Right,
so the
exactly.
Same thing with the Acolytes. It's like, oh, they're talking. Oh, shit, flies! Lightsaber scene, yes! And then it's over.
One thing I can give that last trilogy for Star Wars was that I didn't feel that way about Rey. Granted, I don't think they wrote her well at all as a character for me to care about, but I didn't feel like they were shoving feminism down my throat.
No, they weren't.
You know what I'm saying?
They actually were doing something good with that one, and with her progression from being someone who was, was it a desert collector of items in order to survive and get food or whatever to a Jedi warrior. Jedi Knight.
It would have been, I think they told the story just a little off for it to make a lot of sense come the ninth movie. But all in all, there were good qualities to that trilogy where I wasn't left going, why is the lead a female? You know what I'm saying? Like I didn't even really think about it much at all, and that's kind of the point. It shouldn't be one of those things like, what was it Dave Chappelle saying, like, if I'm not making fun of you, you're not a part of the community.
Exactly.
Right? Like I should just feel like you're a part of the community, and now I'm just basing you based on your actions. And that's what I can look at those 3 movies and be like, I didn't like it because of X, this, and at no point in time I'm saying because the lead is a woman.
Right. I mean, storytelling is about us connected to a character in a way that we relate with it, or we can either hate him or love him. I mean, Thanos, for point of example, didn't hate. I mean, hated his idea of what he was trying to do, but you understood where it was coming from. But you don't have to agree with it. But he was a character that at some point you're either frightened with him or you're just like, oh, okay. I understand what you're doing, but I don't like it.
The man is a low-key mass murderer who, like, it's crazy to think that he does everything he did to Nebula, right? But we all sympathize with what he had to do for Gamora.
Yeah.
Right? And you're like, huh? Wait. In retrospect, you're like, but why? But, yeah, I mean, how do they make you sympathize with mass murder?
Great storytelling.
Yep.
Again, it boils down to that no matter how you look at it. I mean, you can try and push as many and say, like in Warhammer 40,000, they want to make all the Crestides, 90% of them women, but the Crestides are all male-based. The lore, everything is based on that. So why are you changing it? If you wanted a female base, well, there are other factions. Races, are. What are there too? Is it too much? Because they're either too graphic or too warmonger like. So what? They're telling a story. Maybe I'm not saying that all of a sudden that you put those women up front, and all of a sudden everybody's going to become a mass murderer. No, that's not going to happen. They just
want you to hate them because, like, remember the Nazis were only 10% of the country. So, like, hey, you're gonna hate them more if they're like the Nazis. I don't know. Possibly that's the best I got for them because it makes no sense.
I hear that. But the more I look at it, and the more I think it's like corporate companies, Disney, Amazon, get off your high horse. Tell the story, okay? Because I guarantee you, I say this as an avid watcher and viewer. I don't speak for everyone, but I'm just going to speak for myself. I will throw money at you like a stripper if you tell this story just the way I like it, not just the way you want me to like it. That's the difference.
Yeah. Okay. You create these works of art for an audience, for the fans, not for yourself, right? You should give the audience what it wants and get the money that you want, and everybody wins.
If you don't believe that, look at the numbers prior to this whole initiative and look at those numbers, because those numbers tell you a story right there, and they're telling you that they don't give a damn. They want to see a good story.
We know when a project was led by an actual fan versus when it's led by studios.
Exactly to that. Oh, God. Well, we have to go through this again. You might as well get the Jameson. I'm definitely going to be needing it right after this one.
Oh, we definitely do that.
No, we don't have money for special effects, but here we go. I'm running out.
Hi, I'm Raiden Maloma, and you might know me from my show, Raiden's World. I'm happy to announce that we're going to be holding our 5th annual Winter Wonderland event. At this event, there's going to be toys, art and crafts, snacks, surprises, and best of all, photos with Santa. And all of this to the community is free. But we need your help. Please donate today. For every $5 that we receive, we could give a toy to a child. For more information, you could go to my website, which is raidensworld.com, or you could go to the LDM Network site, which is ldmnetwork.net. So please, donate today, and let's make memories for us kids. Have a Merry Christmas. Bye!
What the hell? I said, I'm done with the special effects. I'm done.
Hand cramp.
Hand cramp, finger cramp. That's like, and there's no union for this over here. I'm not unionized to get that kind of help. So, next subject is something that I just came across, and I was always wondering, what's the big whole, hoopla behind it? In the early ages of movie filmmaking, like say maybe 10, 15 years ago,
Right.
CGI was created.
Right.
Which opened the door to huge, and I mean film imagination to go beyond whatever animatronics, hand puppets, or green screen, whatever that they used to create. I mean, Superman 78, beautiful, pretty much ahead of his time at that time to make you believe a man flies. But then
Man of Steel.
Yeah. It's like, whew, I'm in. The battle between him and Zod over Metropolis was beyond wild. I was like, what? But now you're able to create in such a way that there's like no possibilities with the imagination.
Right.
Then I started hearing actors, disputing or picketing against SAG, Screen Actors Guild, about AI.
Yeah.
And so I'm like wondering, what's the big deal about AI? It's just CGI in another level. Like take for instance Rogue One. You were to bring that actor back to life,
Right,
to do that scene that he was more or less a part of. But been 10 years since he passed away? And was it Admiral Toldwin, if I'm not mistaken?
So CGI is different because it's purely visual, right? It still requires that human aspect of creativity.
Right.
AI, and I said this the other day because I've followed the back and forth with the actors and SAG and all that and AI and all, and it really comes down to the writers, and the actors are backing the writers, because even now, if you have those programs for school, right, ChatGPT, this stuff, like whatever, you can type in, let's say 6 or 7 different ideas, right, into a line, be like, I want this type of character that does this sort of thing, whatever, and it will write out an entire script, right? The thing about it is, what would they need writers for if a studio can just type in 6 simple facts and get an entire movie script? Right? That's tons of jobs gone. But it also means that a lot of projects that will come out, which I can get into that as well, will be very much the same. And I think that's already an issue that we kind of have in Hollywood, is that there's not a lot of originality anymore. You get more of an original take on someone else's idea. I don't know how many, around this is the 3rd or 4th version of Wicked that just came out, right? You get what I'm saying? And granted, everyone has their own little spin. There's a little twist and cool. I'm not going to say that they're all the same, but they're the same. How about we have a whole new movie about witches? Maybe, you got the Wicked Witch of the West and the Good Witch of the North, but what about a movie about the East and the South? You know what I'm saying? I don't know. Just something
There's an idea.
different, right? You know what I'm saying?
Mortal Kombat for witches.
Yeah. I would watch that.
Good Glenn and the evil witch, and then you'll see the old moderator fight, and that's it.
That would be for me something more original, even if you're basing it off of an old whatever. But there's not a lot of original tales. I feel like half the time I'm watching a show or a movie, and I'm like, oh, this reminds me of that one or that one. And I know it gets harder and harder over time, but you'll never have that ability of like a human creation really coming up with something fully new if you allow AI to take over creative, because what it's going to do is just take from a little bit of Shakespeare, a little bit of this, a little bit of that, and then create the character based off of what traits you want in them, right? You're going to end up with every gangster story being a bad version of a 50 Cent show. Right? Okay. So I don't need that. That's what we have Tyler Perry for. Right?
This is true.
I just say it.
Sorry, Tyler, but you walked into that one.
Just you need that human aspect, and AI. There is probably an advantage to it that I'm just not seeing, but it's not on that creative front.
Well, here's maybe the advantage that I was seeing. That I remember there was an interview with Tom Hanks, and he said, "Well, one day I'm going to walk out and maybe get hit by a bus. If they have my image, especially the last movie that he just recently did, they showed him and his co-star younger versions, exactly as they were when they did Forrest Gump." And so he says, like, if they do a 360 of their likeness, and that likeness can be put in, yes, minus the dialogue, if he's just the voice actor providing the dialogue, but at least you have him, and you can age him, or you can de-age him, right? But in that respect,
but that too, like I said, that's when you get down to CGI. That's when you're just doing purely like the graphics behind it, right? The AI becomes a thing when now you're creating hologram Tupac, right? You're creating something that's supposed to be the motion or whatever. And if what we're doing is we don't want to, let's say, lose talent or whatever, and we're kind of like storing stuff up, I guess to a degree that makes sense, right? Like, we have someone, the likeness or the voice of Walt Disney, and we have this, AI that can mimic all the things he used to do, right? We tell it he did this, but even that still has a human aspect to it. Someone has to know, someone has to be able to input. That's where AI can be functional, right? Where there's still that human control of it. We're not heading towards iRobot crap.
Right.
We're not heading towards the Terminator. That's
Yes.
where AI gets dangerous. How much autonomy do we want to give these projects?
Well,
You know
we're
what I'm
also
saying?
looking at the ethical implications as well, because again, going back to Tom Hanks, you have a 3D dimensional likeness of Tom Hanks from head to toe.
Yeah, but he signed off.
He signed off on it. But again, using his likeness for anything other. And that's where the ethical implications.
Right.
Like if you wanted to use him as a commercial and say you de-aged him 10 years and he's selling a product that he didn't endorse or sign off on, because again, it is the actor's likeness that you are using. So to some degree, there is a legal implication that even if he signed off, but I'm pretty sure that contract, it has to have some stating that for certain products or endorsements whatsoever,
Right.
seek permission or what have you. So that way you're not abusing his likeness to sell something that would otherwise be unethical to sell.
Something that he definitely wouldn't endorse.
Exactly. So in that respect, you have that unethical side. But then there's the beauty, like you said, of creating it. Like recently I had watched what's called the Roddenberry Files. And they were recreating this video, and they showed it to William Shatner, and he was blown away by it, but it showed Kirk from Generations somehow on a planet, like either he re-entered the ribbon or he was collected, and then talking about his soul. So he's walking through a field, and then he comes across Savick, and then Savick happens to have a Vulcan that's standing behind her. And then it took me a while. It's like, what? Because the look on his face, like, is that? And with a nod, without words, just okay. And then that made me realize the Ponfar that they shared
Right.
in Star Trek III, Search for Spock. So that person behind it is Spock's son. And I was like, okay. And then he walks through, and then he walks into a room where all of a sudden, Captain Kirk from the TV series, the young Captain Kirk, and then he's looking around, and then he comes across another version of himself from Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan. And then he sees the person from the very beginning that was walking through. Those two disappear, and it opens up into a room where lying on a bed is Spock. Because at that point, he had passed away.
All right.
But like another 100, maybe another 70 or 80 years later than him. And him coming across his friend, seeing each other, and they held hands in a brotherly love, and then they watched as the sun rises. So when storytelling like that, where you can bring that character and bring him back to what he was, what he looked like, and there was no real words. The only words were just something that he repeated one time in Star Trek II, but that was just words in the opening, not him
Right.
speaking it. It was just the facial expressions and all. And I'm like, wow. And it was a very beautiful but yet touching story. And I'm like, damn, AI doing something like that, I could understand.
All right.
Especially with Val Kilmer.
Yeah.
When he did Top Gun Maverick, mind you, his throat cancer took away most of his voice, but they were able to take everything he's ever said in every other film, digitize it,
And put it
and then create it to the point where he can now speak again.
right.
And, there'll always be like, who's the best pilot? It's like, okay, you put that all together and he says that, okay, but that sold me because it was like I knew about his throat cancer. And I'm like, and I heard him talk once.
Right.
I was waiting to hear that
voice.
And then what came out was the other voice, the voice that I already grown watching and go, oh, damn.
Right.
And it's like, wow, that's a very, very touching moment. Again, when it's used correctly in storytelling, yes.
As long as you don't get rid of the human aspect of it, I don't really have a problem.
The other flip side to that is Okay, actors that, and eventually you're going to keep reusing some of these name actors.
Right.
What happens to, let's say, if I want to be
Yeah.
up and coming good actors, and let's say I want to become an actor, it's like, am I going to be in competition to a digital impression of somebody else
who's passed away 40, 50, 60 years ago,
but still uses them because in essence he still brings people to see him up on the screen?
I mean, essentially, you're going to forever be up against Samuel L. Jackson in a film.
Oh, this is true.
Yeah.
Samuel will never die in my eyes. Period.
You're not going to beat him for any role. I don't care.
No. But as far as other roles are concerned, the
Yeah.
ones that not Samuel is doing, that will be, I guess, the obstacle that a younger actor is going to come across. And that's how I'm looking at it. Do I prefer a regular actor or an AI? Well, again, as you pointed out, a regular actor has his body, his emotions, his thoughts, his perceptions of how a character is going to be. You're going to see that authenticity from the human aspect.
Right.
Now, the AI, as good as that technology can be,
It still looks like technology.
it still looks like
But
technology
at the
to
same
a
time,
degree.
Look, you've seen green screen done, and you have people in the green screen movie, and the image just is not a human, right? So there are times where you're just kind of like, oh, well, let's take Avatar, right? You're like,
Right.
It looks like it has human reactions, but you can easily tell that it's not a human. I think that's where AI is that gray area, where you'll notice like something about this just doesn't feel quite right. So having an actual live human do stuff definitely feels more authentic.
Yes.
Right. And it's not to take away from the fact, because, we talk about AI now as if it's brand new. No, this is just a more updated iteration of all the forms of animation that we've seen beforehand. Even the voice stuff you're talking about, we've seen that done before. It's just that more and more it sounds more like a person rather than sounding like Siri.
Exactly. I mean, as technology grows and the applications of it, and the more you have to now keep an eye out to what's authentic, what's
Right.
what's created. And again, to me, the actor will be that original creation for now.
Right, and I think over time, as we're going to see more AI projects, more CGI, more just more digitized stuff, I think eventually there's going to be a point where the audience will have that AI expectation. So for me, yes, I do prefer a live actor, but I think in the future, no one's really going to care if it's live or AI or whatever, because it's going to be more commonplace. It's going to be more standardized for it to feel any sort of inauthentic.
Yeah, I mean, I can't look at sci-fi films or shows the same way, because now, thanks to CGI, it gives it more authenticity back then. Because when LucasArts created Industrial Light and Magic to do the special effects of Star Wars, it was groundbreaking.
Right.
Then they passed it on to a lot of other sci-fi shows. And then it became more of a commonplace.
Right.
It's like, would you have the look and feel of Jurassic Park if CGI didn't create the dinosaurs?
Yeah.
Would it look the same?
It was done more like Godzilla.
It would probably be a dude in a suit. If you can get away with a dude in a suit, you're right about that.
Yeah.
But the fact that you can bring it up and create such an imaginary world that you can think it, and now the computer can create it. Lord of the Rings, especially
that
Lord of the Rings.
definitely needed, to redo that whole project without the animation. And I don't even think you realize when you're watching it at first. I think that was the beautiful part about it. How much of that was animated CGI. I mean, they did a lot of rescaling work because they actually built some of those castles and whatnot, and just re-imaged it like the old Godzilla films. It was a very extensive visual arts project. It was beautiful, and I'm really excited for the animated film they have coming out. Roarnheim, right? Mm-hmm. It's gonna be amazing.
So that's my take on it. When I see something now, fantasy based, sci-fi based, it's like I expect to see how realistic the feel it's going to be, how it will look. You know? And I know sometimes now with the cost of creating them, it's like
Yeah.
it's a fortune. Like case in point, where it actually goes wrong, but it costs them a hell of a ton of money to make it. The Justice League, the Josh Whedon version.
Yes.
The as I like to call it, Mustache Gate. Because of the fact that Cavill was working on Mission Impossible and his character had to have the mustache.
Right.
But when Zack Snyder's daughter unfortunately passed,
Yeah.
he stepped down. They brought in Josh Whedon to finish the film, and he did a lot of rewrites and reshoots.
Yeah.
But you know, he had asked the people, the crew over at Mission Impossible, I need to borrow Henry for a couple of days
And they did that
for these
digitized
reshoots.
face thing.
Yeah, and they said, yeah, you can use him, but he can't shave the mustache. Deal with it. I think they were really being petty because I know he could have grew that back in just a short time.
Yeah,
but
no.
And it was probably like the worst
CGI
CGI
you've ever
of a
seen.
digitized mustache. I mean, he looked like, and I'm going to say the word again, he looked like he had an ass over his lip.
Yep.
And not mustache.
Yeah.
Okay? Like a second ass over it. I said it again for a third one. See, this is the time where I'm going to put my eyebrow up. All right, Lou? Just so you know. But yeah, and then it took a kid. It was like, was it 2 years later? A kid did it with his computer. No, and it's $13 million that cost for that thing. So here's a kid with a computer, no money whatsoever, and same programming, and he did the same thing. And guess what? No mustache. Not even a hint of it. It looks so good. And all the scenes that they had to take that off. And
But
I'm like, what?
they've literally shown that CGI is supposed to be cost effective, so they did it bad. The best CGI movie you've seen. I would argue it's probably Inception.
Inception?
Inception.
I can understand. Yeah, I would have to say that. But also, in the same line that uses that kind of special effects, how you call it, Multiverse of Madness.
Yeah, that was good.
Doctor Strange Multiverse,
That
because
was
they
good.
use those same illusions and then a few extra.
Yeah.
And I'm like, wow. It's like if you wanted to get blown away, like mind blown, those are two definitely good examples of CGI just blowing your mind. And whoever thought of this, give him a raise.
Yeah.
Him or her, excuse me. Let me say him or her a raise that's behind that computer to create that. Because the beauty of, again, this technology, both its bad points and its good points, the brilliance of it is that the imagination has no bound.
See, there's
no bound.
As long as there's a human behind it,
True.
I think we can accept it as a tool. Right? That's what it's supposed to be, a tool that enhances the experience.
Okay. And with that, thank you again. I will be contacting Endeavor in a second to beam you back aboard. But from all of us to you, thank you, and always stay nerdy. Live long and prosper, guys.